The reason I titled this talk what I did, to hell with you or to hell with me, which one is worse for your health? If you say to hell with me or if you say to hell with you. Really both are, neither one is good. One is more about forgiving other people and one is about forgiving yourself. But I wanted to use that because that's how this topic came up. Someone has been writing to me pretty frequently, I'm not going to use her name, talking to me about how she can't forgive the person in her life who did something really pretty horrible to her and her family. But worse, she can't forgive herself for allowing it to happen, for not seeing it, that it was happening. And that is, it's pretty common and it's also fairly toxic. So I want to just talk about it. I'm no stranger to this myself. I understand this. I've been through EMDR myself. I've made sure that I actually got, made sure I took care of some of this because it's not only not good for you, it's not good for the other people in your life. I'm hoping you guys can see me okay because I had to switch gears here when I had to change. Let me know if you can see me okay. So I wanted to talk about this. So before I answer questions like this, social media is tricky because to answer some of these things that some of you write in to me about, and I know some of you write to me and it's okay. Some of you write to me because it's a way to either get information about what we do at our clinics, or sometimes, just in a very honest way, you'll write to me because you want to know what my husband would say about something. Either of those are fine, but I can't always answer some of these things that you send me or some of these questions because they're quite serious. And I would never want to minimize that and just flippantly answer something outside of my scope of practice. I hope that makes sense to you. That can be very dangerous when someone is giving you just random advice over social media. So if I take my time answering, it's because I'm reaching out to someone else. It's because I'm a nurse, I'm not a physician, and I'm not going to just give you some answer that I think could hurt you. So some of the stuff you send me is very, very, very serious. And this one, I think this woman, it's very serious. I think she actually needs some help. And so I do want to applaud her for letting us reach out to her, letting someone professional, we had someone call her. But I want to talk about it because this is very common. So many people suffer from this idea of not being able to forgive others, and even worse, not being able to forgive yourself. Self-loathing, self-hatred is just devastating to your lives. So I like what this Dr. Mark D. White says. Why is this such a problem? What is it? What is this self-hatred about, and why is it such a problem? He says, in terms of the different problems that arise in such relationships, like relationships between you and someone else, consider two ways the self-loathing person can deal with his or her particular issues. Use your partner to raise you up or pull your partner down to your level. Both behaviors focus on you and not the other person, who should be an equal partner in the relationship, regardless of your feelings toward yourself. If not, a healthy relationship won't last. So I want to back up for a minute. I know that sometimes the self-loathing can start because you feel like you allowed something bad to happen, maybe to you or to your child or someone in your life. You didn't see it coming. Why didn't you see it coming? Were you too stupid? Were you not paying attention? Were you too selfish? All these thoughts start going through your head. But the reason I'm encouraging you to get help for this is because your relationships can't really be that healthy if you are so focused on all of those thoughts. If you are that focused on you and why you are bad or why you are wrong or why your life is, all of these negative thoughts, you're still focused on you. I know that sounds harsh and I'm sorry. But your relationships aren't going to be as good as they could be. So I just want you to think about that. And if you're a mother, if you caught the first part of my last one that got cut off, I was saying that when I first met my husband, one of the first things he did was take me to meet Byron Katie. I'd gone through a really bad divorce and I had a young child, and my husband was like, you really should meet a friend of mine, Byron Katie. And he took me up to meet her, and he also got me 10 sessions of EMDR, special type of therapy for trauma, to help you sort of get past some of this stuff. And I looked at him, I'm like, you think I'm kind of messed up? And he's like, no, I don't think you're messed up. I think you're amazing. I really, really like you. And I know that some of this negative thinking can affect relationships. And worse than that, even if you don't stay with me, it's going to affect how you parent your daughter and how she ends up thinking of herself and going into relationships. So, let's see, she said, that's how I interpreted the video. Yeah, so no, someone said to hell with you. That's how I interpreted the video from a few minutes back. No, I'm not saying to hell with you. It's a question. Just to answer this one person's comment, it's not to hell with you. The question is it better to say to hell with you, or is it better to say to hell with me? So just want to clarify that. It's about self-loathing. So anyways, my husband took me to meet Fire and Katie, and it really changed the way I saw myself, the way that I that I wanted to begin to see myself in relationships, myself overall. Because I didn't want to take that going forward into future relationships. So that's why I like that. There's another thing, when I talked about what Dr. White said, there's another saying: you can build the tallest building, or you can tear everyone else's down. There's two ways to have the tallest building in town. You can build the tallest building, or you can tear everyone else's down. But when you have this like pervasive self-loathing, you're not even building the tallest building, you're expecting someone else to do it. It means that the relationships you get into, you're not strong enough to build the tallest building, so you're finding people that build you up, or you tear them down. So that's where it begins to be difficult on relationships. Someone said, EMDR therapy, can you elaborate? EMDR therapy is a way of processing. It's eye movement rapid desensitization. It's actually different than a lot of therapy, because rather than just sitting there and forever talking about problems, you actually are doing something physical to help your brain process trauma. I found it incredibly helpful. I'm going to talk more about different ways that you can deal with self-loathing, but very, very, very helpful. I thought it was really interesting. So where does self-loathing come from? So many people think it comes from childhood trauma. Yeah, maybe it does, but that's not the only place it comes from. This is where I wanted to reach out and find out from some experts, where does it come from? I asked my husband, I asked several people, why do some people get into the self-loathing thing and other people don't? They handle trauma completely differently. So there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, childhood trauma could be one reason. Adult trauma could be one reason, like soldiers, sometimes get into this. Being left alone as a child, turns out that could be one reason. If someone wasn't there to help you learn to process things as a child, to learn to process not just trauma, but how to process stress, how to think about challenges when you were young. If your parents were always working, and my mom worked 3 jobs, my dad wasn't there, then you begin to take things that happen or your negative thoughts and you internalize them, as opposed to having someone there to help you process them in a positive way. That alone can sometimes affect people. Sexual trauma for sure. So women tend to be affected more by this than men for sure, for several reasons, because women tend to be more affected by things like sexual trauma. Hormones. So this is a big one. Why are women more prone to self-hatred? One, sexual trauma, which I just talked about. The other one is hormones. Believe it or not, things like testosterone and estrogen play a role. So, and also serotonin. Women have 50% less serotonin than men do, which makes them more vulnerable to depression. Add to that estrogen, so there's cycles, okay? When your hormones cycle, that increases your risk of depression. And estrogen actually decreases GABA, okay? So whereas testosterone boosts GABA. So GABA helps you to not feel as anxious. So that's why women tend to be more prone to depression, more prone to anxiety, more prone to certain traumas in life. So you can see why this might become a problem, why it might be more female dominant. That doesn't mean men don't have it. Trust me, soldiers, lots of people have this. Lots of men suffer from it as well. But also women will tend to have heightened stress responses as a result of more emotional trauma. So hopefully that makes sense. Their stress responses tend to be on like hyper alert all the time. So there's also one of the things that will show you how this works. Women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which means they tend to have higher testosterone, they actually don't suffer from self-hatred. They suffer from anxiety and other issues, but not self-hatred the same way that women who are affected by low testosterone and high estrogen do. So what happens? If you blame yourself instead of finding solutions, it just magnifies the problem. That's why when this person kept writing to me, this isn't an uncommon thing, but this person I thought was particularly vulnerable. It's just going to magnify the problem and affect her other relationships, and it already was. Her daughter was being affected greatly. So this next part's going to sound harsh, and I don't want to sound harsh. All right, I want to sound empathic, but I need to put this out there. Why is this bad for you? It's bad for you for a lot of reasons, but here's why. The event that happened to you, the trauma, may have happened once. It may have happened a dozen times. I don't know. I don't know what happened to you particularly. But whatever it is that happened, that person might have done to you once or a dozen times, but chances are, if you're in a self-loathing cycle, you have been doing to yourself repeatedly. I mean, like multiple times, even a day, sometimes for years. And when you do that, you tend to actually increase the emotion behind it as you do that over and over and over. You increase the intensity of it, and the picture gets bigger and stronger. So I just want to ask this question: who is meaner to you? The person who did it, who was already awful, or you who is allowing it to go on more intensified every single day? I know that sounds mean, but when someone said that to me, I was like, ouch. Okay, so if you're telling me that I am being meaner to myself than that person, and I think that person was pretty much, pardon my French, an ass, then I'm going to figure out how to break that cycle. Okay, so that means I actually have control to change it. If I'm doing it, then I have control to change it. That actually for me was good news, and I know it sounds mean, and I'm not trying to sound mean. I'm just trying to give you some hope that you actually can change it, right? So that's why I want to bring that up. Now, why does it matter? Why does self-loathing matter? Other than what I just said, and other than the fact that you're obviously miserable if you're doing that. There's a lot of reasons. It increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease, for depression, for suicide. It decreases your immunity, increases your risk of cancer. It increases your risk of all sorts of diseases and decreases your ability to heal from other illnesses. So when you get sick, you will not heal because it increases stress hormones. And it's pretty bad. So it also affects your relationships like we talked about, but I want you to think about this cycle regarding people. It pushes healthy people away from you. Okay, so over time, really nice, healthy people want to help you. They will try to help you. But when they continuously and constantly feel like they can't, or feel like you shoot them down when they can't, eventually a healthy person is going to feel exhausted. It's exhausting. And they feel terrible about themselves for not being able to help you, or they feel just bad because they don't know what else to do. And they just eventually will sort of give up. But unhealthy people who are drawn to that cycle are not going to give up. And so you're going to be drawing unhealthy people towards you, and you're going to be pushing healthy people away from you. Really important for you to see this and start to fix it. So I think that this is when I heard that, I'm like, whoa, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to continue unhealthy patterns from the past. I expect a really exciting, happy, fulfilled life. But if I'm the one creating the problem, then I need to be able to fix that. I need to see it and do something about it right now. So there's a lot of reasons, right? It decreases your lifespan, really messes up your relationships. So is it better to hate yourself or is it better to hate others? Neither one. But as long as you're hating yourself, you're not really going to be able to forgive others very effectively because you're so focused on yourself. That's really what I want to get at. As long as you are focused on hating yourself, it's really hard to get out of that pain. So I want you to think about this. I'm a trauma nurse, so I tend to use that as a metaphor, okay? If I'm trying to take care of someone in the hospital who has had a major trauma, major physical trauma, but all of a sudden I'm working on them and I somehow gash my arm and I'm bleeding, right? I'm bleeding and I'm hurting and I'm in pain. it's going to be really hard for me to set that aside until I have focused on wrapping that up and bandaging it and healing it, or at least getting the bleeding to stop. I can't really effectively focus on helping other people. Why do you think they say put the oxygen mask on yourself in airplanes if it drops before you attend to another person? Because you can't effectively help other people until you have taken care of that immediate pain. You know, yeah, if it's a low-level chronic pain, you might be able to set it aside. But that kind of pain is not a low-level chronic pain. It's actually very acute. It's actually very intense. And you tend to be so focused on it that you can't really focus on forgiving other people or helping other people. So that's one of the reasons we say that. It's not that you want to be selfish, it's that you can't really help it, right? And selfish might not be the right way to say it, but you're like so focused on getting out of pain. So, and rightfully so. So we want you to actually do that. Figure out how to get out of pain and fix it. So what can you do about it? Like weightlifting. So someone actually wrote that it's a cycle. If it started, it can be broken. Yes, that's true. And just like weightlifting, you know, behaviors and thoughts, they need training. Just like you work out, you need to constantly train it. So you get stuck in negative cycles of thinking. You need to break that and start positive cycles of thinking. We don't want you to use false thinking like that never happened. Well, it did happen. Okay, that's not what we're saying. Acknowledge that it happened. Just don't blame yourself. Like, be more forgiving of yourself. That's not going to help anything. You're human. All people make mistakes. And one thing that you can do is sometimes think, well, what if this was my child or someone else that you love? If you're young, think of someone else you love, someone you really care about. If that was your best friend or whoever that needed your advice of what to do in that same situation, for me, if my daughter needed my help in what to do in that same exact situation, I guarantee you I would be much kinder to her than I had been to myself in the same situation in the past. I would definitely teach her how to be more loving and forgiving of herself than I was to myself. But if you can actually think to yourself how you would be with someone else, it can be very helpful. So I like this that Dr. Robert Grant said also. Forgiving yourself is crucial for healing. To forgive yourself, you must accept that you were vulnerable or are vulnerable and allow yourself to be human. This means accepting that you have made mistakes if, in fact, you had made any concerning your safety or welfare. So maybe you did make a mistake. Maybe you didn't make a mistake. Maybe you just didn't know. But you were human, okay? If you think you can't, what would you say to your child or someone you truly cherish in the same situation? I actually added that, so that's what I did. So a couple things that I like. The EMD therapy we just talked about, highly recommended. I think it's just a really effective way to process trauma. I like NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming. If there's a really good practitioner in your area who knows how to use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there's different ways like timeline therapy where you go back and you know your current self or future self will help to heal. It's sort of trippy the way it works. It'd be hard for me to explain right now, but it really works well. I actually have a great practitioner in our area that I go to. Jim Haley is amazing if you're in Orange County. And the work of Byron Katie. Byron Katie is amazing. Her book called Loving What Is, so helpful, so amazing. I have found that to be very useful. And believe it or not, one simple thing, focusing on gratitude every single morning. So, and I don't just mean like say the words, okay, today I'm grateful for my cat. I'm not saying, you actually have to think of something, no matter how small, in your life that you really were grateful for at some point. Put yourself into that time. Think about how you felt at the moment. All I have to do is think about the birth of my child or the day I got married or my honeymoon. Bam, I can actually instantly put myself into that grateful feeling, that just amazing feeling of just gratitude and joy. And for those few minutes a day, put yourself into that feeling. Try to think of, no matter how small they are or how big those events were, put yourself into that feeling for a few minutes. It's very, very helpful. This one takes a little longer, but I actually spent a lot of time writing out what I hate about my life and get into it, see it clearly, think about it. Then get up, dance, move, break that state, put on some great music that you love. For me, it's rock music. I mean, I actually love Def Leppard. What can I say? Change that state. And then let's see. And then I rewrite my negative thoughts and I turn it to its opposite, to a positive thought. Okay. So if I actually used an example of this not too long ago in one of my live chats about how I was fearful about something happening to me and leaving my daughter without a mother, right? So I didn't even realize that thought had sort of crept into my thinking, because I pride myself on trying to clean up my thinking, but that thought had crept in. So I have to be healthy, because if I'm not, then something will happen to me, and, you know, I'll leave my daughter without a mother. And I mean, all this crazy nonsense started creeping into my head. The problem is you actually get what you focus on, even if what you're focusing on is not what you want. So be careful how you phrase things. So I rephrased that to something very positive while I was in a positive state, while I'm playing music that I love, that makes me happy, right? Get up, exercise, move, and then do that. And I'm like, no, I've raised a really strong, powerful daughter. I am a health warrior. I do so many things that are so good for my health. And if something did happen to me, my daughter's an amazing person. I have raised a strong girl who can handle just about anything. So rephrase it somehow into something that's very empowering for you. And then, you know, this is another technique that I love. You can take that old picture. If you stop and think about the picture that was making you feel traumatized or sad or angry or hateful or whatever it is, close your eyes and think about that picture. And you probably see it very vividly. Bright colors, larger than life. You're probably smaller than the rest of the event, or the person in the event. You're likely smaller. For me, when I see an event in my life that's really traumatic, I am smaller than everyone else in the picture. The picture is very bright. There's no frame around it. It's color. And I'm not as big. And so when I think about that event, no wonder I was scared. No wonder I was nervous, right? Everything's bigger than me. Everything's like scarier than me. Vivid. So what I would do is, I learned this is an NLP technique. Frame the picture, make it more normal size, frame it. I turned it black and white. I made myself a little larger. I made everyone else in the picture a little smaller. And then all of a sudden I changed the sound. So the voices that were bigger and more powerful and really deep in the picture, I made them squeaky. I made them sound like Mickey Mouse. It was really cool. I made them sound like Mickey Mouse, and I all of a sudden sounded like a warrior. I started thinking of myself as big and powerful and strong. And then I took the picture and I shrunk it down really small and put it behind me and on the floor. So I had to look over my shoulder and down at the picture. Now you have to close your eyes and really get into this and do this. You have to like take your time with it. But all of a sudden, the feeling that you get when you are thinking of a black and white picture where you are bigger than what's going on in the picture, or at least normal size. The voices are not overpowering, but now they are shrunk down and they sound like Mickey Mouse. The color stops moving, and it's black and white, and it's, you know, stops moving, and it's small, and it's now down on the ground. It loses its power. It's very crazy how it works, but it's actually really, really cool. So those are just some of my favorite things, but I wanted to throw that out for you and see how that works. Now, I highly suggest, if this is really pervasive, like it was for the woman who keeps writing to me and she knows who she is, we had someone professional from our clinic call her to come in for an assessment. Because if you've had a brain injury, if your hormones are out of balance, if this is something you have struggled with and you're having, say, suicidal thoughts or something else, you probably need professional help. So these are some quick tips for you, because we want you to see how important it is, but do not underestimate, you know, getting professional help. We really want you to know that there is hope, there is help. And I'm not ignoring you if it takes me time to get back to you. It's because I'm actually trying to get answers for you. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, either you know someone going through this, please share it, or have them write to us. You can take our brain health assessment online. You can write to me personally and I'll have someone get back to you. But please don't suffer with these thoughts any longer. And let me know how you're doing. Okay, have a great night.